Hi everyone, John here, All Miniatures Great and Small, and today we're doing a unit overview. This time we're starting with the Hungarians from the Bagration Axis and Allies book. We're going to take a look at some of their more unique units. The first one we're going to look at is the Zrinyi. This is a assault gun that is in the fashion of a Stug. If you think of a German Stug, you're not going to go too wrong with this. It's very similar to a Stug, and you can see perhaps the Stug was an inspiration for this conversion. Alright, so the Zrinyi is Hungarian. It is one of their homegrown vehicles, so it's one of the cool things in playing Hungarians in Flames of War is you could use vehicles that are different from your standard German or Soviet ones. Not very many of the smaller nations had top tier tanks to compete with the likes of a Panzer IV or a Stug or a T-34, but these are actually pretty good and you can build a solid core out of them. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the unit card, shall we? Alright, so we have a hit on 4 unit, so it's a careful unit, so it's on par with most frontline Germans. The armor layout is front 7, side 2, top 1. So the armor is very similar to a Stug, but a little bit weaker on the side, only 2, whereas the Stug has a 3. Otherwise, armor layout's the same. Over here on the more soft scores, we have motivation of fearless 3+, which is really nice. Because it's a self-propelled gun, obviously its counterattack is a little bit worse. Skill-wise, it is a veteran 3+, and it has a assault rating of 4+ because of the, again, self-propelled gun rule. Makes it harder generally for these tanks to assault things. Usually that's 1 harder. So those are really good stats. Fearless, veteran, careful is about as good as you can get, and particularly with considering the self-propelled gun penalties, it's still pretty good. You're still squishing infantry and gun teams on a 4+ in assault, which is not bad. Speed-wise, we have a tactical of 10, terrain dash 14, cross-country 18, road dash 20, and a cross-check of 3+. So comparing this to the very similar Stug, the actual terrain dash is a little bit faster. I believe the Stug has a 12-inch terrain dash, and the cross-check is better. This crosses on a 3+ instead of a 4+ like a Stug. Alright, then we have the weapons. So the Zrinyi has, by default, a 105mm gun, which is basically dual purpose. It can fire an artillery bombardment or direct fire. The artillery bombardment is a very respectable 64-inch range with an artillery template, anti-tank, sorry, I nudged the camera. Range is 64 inches, artillery template, anti-tank 3, firepower 3+, and the forward firing rule. So that's a very, those are standard 105 stats, but it's pretty good stats. Anti-tank 3 can threaten tanks. If the target tank rolls a 1, well, top armor 1 tanks that is, they can be penetrated. So they can't completely ignore a bombardment from these guys. Direct fire is not shabby at all. It is 24 inches, which is kind of short, but it is rate of fire 2, 1 on the move, anti-tank 10, 2+ firepower, with a whole bunch of special rules here. It's rocking brutal, forward firing, heat, and slow firing. So brutal is infantry and gun teams re-roll their saves. Forward firing just means it can't shoot behind. It's not a turret. Heat is if you shoot at a tank with armor at long range, they don't get the benefit of the armor increase for range. So normally if you shoot at something beyond 16, they can add +1 to their armor. Heat removes that. And then the biggest downside for this gun is slow firing. So if it moves, this is going to be 1 harder to hit. Now normally these guys are going to be fighting Soviets, which are hit on a 3+ default. So that's not too bad of a penalty, because basically slow firing just makes your target hit on a 4+ instead of a 3+ by default. So it's like giving them a careful rating. So it's not, it's not bad. Brutal definitely makes it better against infantry, and slow firing is obviously a penalty. Heat is interesting because that means at long range this is basically the same as the AT-11 gun on a Stug. It's just with a better firepower. So actually at long range it's a little bit better. The downside though obviously is it's a much shorter range than the Stug's gun, 24 inches versus 32 for the Stug. And then it also rocks 3 machine guns, 3 halted, 2 on the move, and their basic machine gun stats 2 and 16. You can pick up 3 of these for 16 points, which is not bad. And it does have bazooka skirts. You see that special rule there as well, which is if it's anti-tank, if the weapon that hits it is firepower 5+, the side armor goes from a 2 to, I believe, a 5. Is that right? Yeah, side armor 5 against weapons with firepower 5 or 6. So things like bazookas, all of a sudden your side armor is 5, and it is possible for you to roll and bounce or equal the penetration of those weapons. So pretty cool stuff. So overall, I mean, the Zrinyi is cool stat-wise, but it is basically different flavor Stug. It's doing kind of the same things as Stugs are. Its big trick is obviously it can fire artillery as well, which is not to be overlooked. I mean, that can be pretty powerful, particularly if you're playing little Soviets with a lot of stuff and they're all packed together. That's, that artillery is not bad, particularly if you're running a company of these guys. If you have 2 or 3 platoons of these guys, all of a sudden you can drop quite a lot of artillery templates on your opponent, which can be a little scary. AT-3 3+ firepower means tanks aren't safe. Obviously infantry and gun teams aren't safe as well. Overall, I like these tanks. I just went with a basic green. I did not paint the camo that's on the cover of the rule book, just because I wanted to have ones that are a little bit different. But I like how these turned out. They're pretty cool. One other thing you can do is there is a card in the Hungarian card deck. That card basically lets you replace one of the 105mm guns with a 75mm for 1 point. So you can upgrade one of the 3. And basically it gives it the same gun as the Stug, range 32, halted and moving rate of fire is 2-1, anti-tank 11, 3+ firepower. So just like the Stug, but it can't fire bombardment, and that kind of hinders one of the big advantages of this. So if I upgrade this guy to a 75mm gun, if this platoon wants to fire a bombardment, I only have 2 teams firing, so that means I'm re-rolling my successful hits. So by upgrading that 1 point, yes, I have a longer range gun, but it's really not, it's also losing me a lot of the artillery benefits of this unit. So depending on how you play and your meta, losing that artillery might not be a big deal. Having an AT-11 gun that can shoot on the move without penalty might be more attractive to you, but you can only upgrade one of them. So it's not like you can upgrade the whole unit with them. So it's a cool upgrade card. You might consider doing that for the HQ, because he's by himself anyway, if you take a Zrinyi company, that is. But I don't know about upgrading the guys in the platoons, because you only get, you max out on 3. The 3 is the only way you can take these. So, yeah. They are pretty cool. As far as what kind of opponents they face, well, they're typically facing Soviet hordes, so they're facing everything from T-70 light tanks to IS-2s. Obviously, the direct fire is not going to bother an IS-2, but anti-tank 10 versus T-34s can be scary, particularly with heat at long range. They're not getting a bonus. So anti-tank 10 versus front armor 6 obviously means they need a 4 to, on their armor roll, they need a 4 to equal, and a 5 or 6 to bounce. So something like a T-34 is only bouncing 33% of the time shots from these guys, whether it's long or short range. That's pretty good. So that means 50% of the time these guys are going to get a penetrating hit on a T-34. And with the improved firepower, 2+ firepower, it's except unless I'm rolling them, it's pretty much a done deal. So that can be something to consider in taking these guys. So I do like them. I only have 4 because I bought the starter set. I wish that Battlefront would sell something so that the starter set people could expand this without having extra tanks or losing tanks. So for example, if I wanted to add 2 more platoons of these, I need 6 of them, but they only sell box in 5, or the starter box only has 4. So if I buy 1 box, I can only add 1 platoon of 3 and then have 2 extra. If I buy 2 boxes, I'm going to have 4 extra, because I don't think you can take 4 platoons of these guys. I think you can max out on 3. Alright guys, there you go. The Zrinyi is my favorite Hungarian tank. I like the way it looks. I like the way it performs on the board. It's just different enough from a Stug that I don't feel like I'm just playing with a Stug with a different paint scheme. More on that later. But I feel like I'm playing with a unit that is kind of unique. It's got really good stats. It's pricey, but I think it's something that can be doable on the battlefield. So there you go, guys. There's a look at the Zrinyi. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please do consider giving us a like and subscribe. Check out our Patreon, where patrons get access to a exclusive Flames of War battle report just for them every month. We have quite a neat backlog. You will be seeing these guys in a future battle report pretty soon. Thanks for watching, and keep on wargaming.